Today we're using the Cuisinart mixer to make better than Olive Garden breadsticks.
It's called that bounce back.
Today we're going to be using the Cuisinart mixer to make breadsticks, and I'm using the dough hook, so I want you to see how it works because a lot of people have made comments about how the dough hook doesn't pull the dough aside, but it does. So I'm going to show you. We're going to start with 2 cups of flour, and I am using the King Arthur all-purpose organic unbleached flour. We're going to do a pinch of salt, about yay big. We're going to use almost a full tablespoon of sugar, but not quite. This is food for the yeast. Nom, nom, nom. That's kind of a full tablespoon. Okay, I'm going to reserve a little bit. To bloom the yeast, we're going to use about 3/4 of a cup of water. This is warm, lukewarm water. And I'm going to use Bob's Red Mill yeast. This is active dry yeast. Keep this in the refrigerator so that it stays fresher longer. I used about 1.5 teaspoons of this. So this is what the yeast looks like in the warm water. You're going to just make sure that all of this is dissolved and then let it kind of hang out for a minute. Now we're going to dump the yeast, the warm water yeast, into the flour, sugar, and salt mixture. And we're going to add about 1/4 cup of olive oil. We can adjust this based on what the dough looks like, but we're just gonna throw that in, lower the mixer head, and then turn it on high. Now, for the dough hook, it says 3 to 5, but what I've noticed is to get this to form a ball, you do need to turn the speed up a little bit higher. What I started to notice here was that the ratios of the ingredients were off. It was too dry of a dough, so I had to scrape down the sides and then add more liquid. Now, this is also going to be that moment where you realize that you need a little bit more liquid, so I'm going to add a tiny bit more olive oil. You don't want your dough sticky, but you want it to form a ball. This is still too dry, so my ratios were off. For the liquid, it needs to be a little more than 1/4 cup of olive oil and about 1.25 cups of water. A little bit more olive oil. We can always add more flour, but this needs to have enough liquid in order to pull it together. You can see here that I increased the speed in order to encourage the dough ball to form, and it does now that the liquid's right. Here you'll see I even add a little bit more olive oil just to, encourage this dough ball to get everything off the sides. Now that the dough ball has come together, we're just going to let this kind of knead itself on low for about 10 minutes. Okay, when it looks about like this, we're done. This is going to be our breadstick dough. Place it on a non-stick surface, preferably oiled with some olive oil. Wiggle the oil around. We're going to set that there. I'm going to cover it in plastic wrap, and we're going to let it rise for 40 minutes. Unfortunately, when I filmed the second set, it didn't come through. So when this is done after 40 minutes, you're going to separate it into the same size sections, roll it into breadstick size, set it on the tray again, and let it rise for another 40 minutes. Brush them with butter, garlic, and a little bit of oregano, and then pop them in a 400-degree oven for about 14 minutes, and they're done. After licking their fingers clean, the teenagers named these better than Olive Garden breadsticks.
It speaks for itself.